The gunshot shattered the window 3 seconds after Amma Mensah made the worst decision of her life. She'd spent 3 years in Seoul perfecting invisibility. Undocumented immigrants didn't take risks. They didn't make eye contact. They certainly didn't slip handwritten warnings to Korean Mafia bosses about assassination plots. But she'd done exactly that. Now she was on the floor of Hanoi, Seoul's most expensive restaurant, covered in shattered glass and expensive wine, while men in dark suits opened fire on the private dining room where she'd just been serving dessert. "Get down!" The Korean man, the one whose eyes had met hers when she'd handed him that note, the one she'd just saved, threw his body over hers, shielding her from the spray of bullets tearing through silk wallpaper and antique screens. He was warm, solid, smelled like expensive cologne and something darker, gunpowder, power, danger. "Who are you?" he'd asked when she'd slipped him the note 5 minutes ago, his fingers closing around her wrist hard enough to bruise. "Nobody," she'd whispered in accented English. "Just run." He hadn't run. He'd read her words. "Your fiancé sold you out. They're in position. Back exit. Now." And his expression had gone from shock to stone in a heartbeat. Then chaos had erupted. Now, pinned beneath him on a floor, slick with blood and broken glass, Amma could hear him barking orders in Korean to his men, could feel his heart hammering against her spine. And she thought, Mum was right, I should have stayed in Ghana. But even as she thought it, her fingers curled around the sleeve of his designer suit, holding on. The gunfire intensified. His men were returning fire, the sound deafening in the enclosed space. The Korean man shifted, pulling a weapon from inside his jacket with practiced ease. He fired 3 times over her head without even looking, and somewhere across the room, someone screamed. Then silence, sudden and complete except for ringing ears and laboured breathing. "Are you hurt?" he demanded, pulling back just enough to check her for wounds, his hands fast and efficient and surprisingly gentle. Amma shook her head, couldn't speak, could only stare at the man she'd just saved and who'd just saved her back. He was younger than she'd thought, early 30s maybe, with sharp features and ink-dark hair swept back from a face that revealed nothing but his eyes. There was something in his eyes that looked almost like recognition. "Good," Kang Min-jun said. He stood in one fluid motion, hauled her to her feet, and called out in Korean. A middle-aged man appeared from the shadows, unremarkable face and quick eyes. "Jin, get the car, we're leaving." Then to Amma, in English. "You're coming with me." It wasn't a question. 3 hours earlier, Amma had been a ghost. That's what you became when you stayed past your visa expiration. You moved through Seoul like water around stone, silent, invisible, essential but never acknowledged. She'd perfected the art over 2 years of living in the shadows. The staff locker room at Hanoi was cramped and fluorescent bright, a stark contrast to the opulent dining rooms beyond the door. Amma changed into her server uniform, white shirt, pressed crisp, black skirt. Her natural coils pulled back into a tight bun. She tucked her gold Adinkra necklace beneath her collar, a gift from her grandmother, the only piece of home she wore where others could see. "Amasi, you take the private rooms tonight." Manager Kim barely looked up from his clipboard. He never made eye contact with her. Easier that way, for both of them. He knew her papers weren't in order. She knew he paid her under minimum wage. Their arrangement worked because neither asked questions. The private rooms were where Seoul's elite conducted business away from cameras. Amma had served everyone from K-pop idols to politicians in those silk wallpapered chambers. She'd learned to be deaf and blind, serve the food, pour the wine, disappear. Tonight would be no different, or so she thought. She gathered her tray and pushed through the kitchen doors into the main restaurant. Hanoi was beautiful in that intimidating way wealthy spaces always were, all dark wood and soft lighting, walls decorated with traditional Korean art worth more than Amma would earn in a lifetime. She'd grown used to the stares she got, when she emerged from the kitchen. A black woman in Seoul was unusual enough. A black woman serving Korea's elite was something people noticed and tried not to notice at the same time. She made her way to private room 7, balanced the tray against her hip, and knocked softly before entering. The room fell silent as she stepped inside. There were 6 people seated around the low table. 5 men in expensive suits, their jackets cut to accommodate the bulk Amma recognized as concealed weapons, and 1 woman who looked like she'd stepped out of a Korean drama, porcelain skin, designer hanbok in deep blue, plastic surgery perfect features, and eyes that calculated the cost of everything. The woman's gaze swept over Amma with barely concealed disdain before dismissing her entirely. But one of the men looked up, and for just a moment their eyes met. He was beautiful in that sharp-edged way that made her think of knives. Strong jaw, serious mouth, expensive haircut. But it was his eyes that caught her. Dark and intense and somehow exhausted, like a man who'd been awake for years and couldn't remember how to sleep. Kang Min-jun, she would learn later, though in that moment he was just another dangerous man in a city full of them. "Excuse me," Amma murmured in Korean, her accent thick but understandable. She set down plates with practiced efficiency, keeping her eyes lowered. The men were talking business, their voices low and clipped. She caught words she wasn't supposed to understand. Territory, alliance, payment. The beautiful woman, his fiancée, based on the massive diamond on her finger, barely acknowledged Amma's presence except to shift her wineglass slightly, forcing Amma to reach across the table awkwardly. Amma finished serving and bowed slightly. "Please enjoy your meal." She was almost to the door when the woman's phone rang. "Excuse me," the woman said in Korean, her voice honey-sweet. "I need to take this." She rose gracefully and swept past Amma into the hallway. Amma held the door, waiting. It was her job to be available. Invisible, present, but not present. The woman walked a few steps away and answered in rapid Korean. At first, Amma paid no attention. Staying invisible meant genuinely not listening, not just pretending. But then the woman's voice dropped, and something in her tone made Amma's spine straighten. "Ne? Oppaduli ready?" "The restaurant, 9 p.m. "Yes, are the men ready?" Amma's blood went cold. She understood enough Korean after 3 years to catch the important words, and what she heard made her stomach drop. "Ne yachonsaja." My fiancé. The woman was setting up an ambush. Here, tonight. The man with the tired eyes, the one who'd actually looked at her like she was human, was going to die. Amma stood frozen in the hallway, her heart pounding so loud she was sure the woman could hear it. The woman ended the call, checked her reflection in a decorative mirror, and smiled. Not the sweet smile she'd worn at dinner. This one was sharp and satisfied. She swept past Amma without a glance and returned to the private room. Amma should have walked away, should have gone back to the kitchen, finished her shift, collected her meagre pay, and gone home to the tiny apartment she shared with 3 other immigrants. She should have stayed invisible. Instead, she thought of her younger brother Kofi, thought of how she'd feel if someone knew he was walking into danger and said nothing. She grabbed a pen from her apron and the only paper she had, a receipt from earlier. Her hands shook as she wrote in English. "Your fiancé sold you out. They're in position. Back exit. Now." Then she picked up the dessert tray and walked back into the room. Her heart was trying to escape her chest. The men were still talking, the woman sipping wine like she hadn't just ordered a murder. Amma moved around the table, setting down small plates of bingsu, the shaved ice dessert melting slowly in decorative bowls. When she reached the man with the tired eyes, she set down his dessert and placed the folded receipt beside it, her hand barely trembling. His fingers closed around her wrist before she could step back. "What is this?" he asked in Korean, his voice low and dangerous. "Please," Amma whispered in English, her accent thick with fear. "Just read it." His eyes narrowed, but he released her wrist and picked up the paper. She watched his face go from suspicion to shock to something harder, colder. His jaw clenched, and for a moment, she thought he might not believe her. Then he stood abruptly, the movement so sudden everyone else went silent. "We're leaving," he said in Korean to his men. "Now!" "Oppa, what?" the woman began, her voice concerned, confused, perfectly innocent. He looked at her, and even Amma could feel the ice in his gaze. "Did you think I wouldn't find out?" The woman's mask slipped for just a second, just long enough for Amma to see the calculation behind her eyes. The quick assessment of whether her plan could still work. It couldn't. The window exploded inward, glass and bullets and screaming chaos. Amma hit the floor, her training from absolutely nowhere taking over. She covered her head, made herself small, tried not to die, and then he was there, covering her body with his, firing back at the shadows in the broken window, shouting orders that Amma couldn't understand through the ringing in her ears. It was over in less than a minute. His men had killed or driven off the attackers. The beautiful fiancée was gone, disappeared in the chaos, and Amma was being pulled to her feet by a man who'd just killed 3 people without blinking. "Can you walk?" he demanded. She nodded, didn't trust her voice. "Then move." They ran. If you're loving this dangerous romance, hit subscribe, because this story is about to get a whole lot more intense. The safe house was in Gangnam, tucked above a legitimate security consulting firm that Min Jun apparently owned. The building was nondescript from the outside, but the apartment they entered was pure luxury. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seoul's glittering skyline, minimalist furniture that probably cost more than Amma's entire year's salary, art on the walls that looked important. Amma stood in the entryway, suddenly aware that she was tracking blood onto white marble floors. Her hands were shaking. Now that the adrenaline was fading, she felt like she might collapse. "Sit." Minjun gestured to a leather couch that looked too expensive to touch. Amma sat, watched as he poured 2 glasses of what looked like whiskey from a crystal decanter. He handed her one and downed his own in a single swallow. She stared at the glass in her hands. "I don't drink. Tonight you do." "I'm Christian." He paused, looked at her properly for the first time since they'd escaped, really looked. Amma felt exposed under that gaze, like he was cataloguing every detail, her dark skin against the white uniform, her gold necklace now visible, her natural hair fighting the constraints of its bun, the exhaustion she carried like a second skin. "Water then," he said, finally, and took her untouched whiskey. The middle-aged man from the restaurant, Jin, she'd heard Min Jun call him, appeared with a bottle of water and a first aid kit. He set both on the coffee table, bowed slightly to Min Jun, and disappeared into another room. "You're hurt," Min Jun said, nodding at her arm. Amma looked down. There was a cut on her forearm, shallow but bleeding steadily. She hadn't even felt it. "It's nothing. Let me." He was already opening the first aid kit, pulling out antiseptic and bandages. His hands were steady, efficient, hands that had killed people an hour ago, now carefully cleaning her wound. The absurdity of the situation hit her all at once. She started laughing, couldn't stop, the sound edging toward hysteria. "I'm sorry," she gasped. "I'm sorry, this is just... I was supposed to finish my shift, go home, send money to my family, and instead we almost died." "But we didn't." He finished bandaging her arm and sat back, studying her again. "Because you warned me." "Why?" Amma took a shaky breath. "I have a younger brother. If someone knew he was walking into danger and said nothing, I'd never forgive them. So I couldn't just let you die, even though you don't know me. I don't need to know you deserve to live." Something shifted in his expression, not quite a smile, but a softening. "What's your name?" "Amma. Amma Mensa. Amma," he repeated, the syllables careful in his accented English. "I'm Kang Min-jun," she finished. "I know. Everyone knows who you are." His mouth twisted. "Then you know what I am. You're the man whose life I just saved. That's all I need to know right now." They sat in silence for a moment. Outside the windows, Seoul glittered and hummed, unaware that anything had changed, but everything had changed. Amma could feel it in her bones. "Your fiancée," she said finally. "She really tried to have you killed." "She wasn't my fiancée by choice." Minjun leaned back, closed his eyes. "It was an arranged marriage, a business alliance between families. I knew she didn't love me. I didn't realize she hated me enough to kill me. What will you do?" "Deal with it." His eyes opened, cold and focused. "But first, I need to deal with you." Fear spiked through Amma's chest. "What do you mean? You're a witness. You warned me, which means her family knows you're involved. They'll come after you to tie up loose ends." He stood, began pacing. "Where do you live?" "Itaewon. I share an apartment with—" "Not safe. They'll find you there." "Family?" "In Ghana." "Papers?" Amma hesitated. Minjun stopped pacing, looked at her. "I'm not immigration. I just need to know what I'm working with." "Expired," she admitted quietly. 2 years ago." He nodded, unsurprised. "So you can't go to the police, can't leave Korea easily, can't even exist officially." He resumed pacing. "You saved my life. In my world, that creates a debt. I pay my debts. So here's what's going to happen. You'll work for me. Legitimate job at my security firm, office manager position. I'll sponsor your visa, get you legal. You'll stay here until it's safe." Amma's head was spinning. "I can't just— I have a job, an apartment, roommates. My family depends on the money I send home. I'll pay you triple what you make at the restaurant. You can still send money home. As for your roommates, Jin will collect your things and explain you had to leave suddenly for family reasons." "You're just deciding my life for me," Amma said, anger cutting through her shock. "I don't even know you." "No," Minjun agreed. "But you know they'll kill you if you go back to your normal life. So you can either trust me or take your chances alone. Your choice." It wasn't really a choice. They both knew it. Amma thought of her mother's face on their weekly video calls, thought of Kofi's university tuition, thought of the tiny apartment in Itaewon that had never quite felt like home, thought of the alternative, running, hiding, dying. "What do you want in return?" she asked quietly. Minjun met her eyes. "I don't know yet, but you're not safe now. They know you warned me. That makes you a target. And I don't leave people to die when I can prevent it. So we'll call it even. You saved my life, I'll save yours." Amma studied him. He was dangerous, she knew that. Part of a world she'd spent 3 years avoiding. But his eyes, those tired, honest eyes, didn't look like they were lying. "Okay," she said, "I'll work for you, but I don't need saving. I need opportunity." The corner of his mouth lifted, almost a smile. "Then let's make a deal." He held out his hand. Amma looked at it, strong, scarred, steady. The hand of a man who'd killed people tonight without hesitation. The hand of a man who'd also shielded her body with his own. She took it. His grip was firm, warm. Their hands lingered a moment longer than professional, and Amma felt something spark between them. Something dangerous and inevitable. She pulled her hand back quickly. "Where will I sleep?" "Guest room, second door on the left. Jin will bring your things tomorrow." Minjun stepped back, creating distance. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we figure out how to keep you alive." Amma stood, suddenly aware of how exhausted she was. Her legs felt like water. "Thank you for everything. Thank you for the warning. Without it, I'd be dead." She nodded and walked toward the hallway, feeling his eyes on her back. At the doorway, she turned. "Your fiancée, the woman who tried to kill you, will you—" "Don't worry about her," Minjun said quietly. "She's already gone. Her family will either send her away or deal with her themselves. Either way, she's not my problem anymore." Amma wanted to ask more, but the look on his face stopped her. Instead, she just nodded and went to find the guest room. Inside, she locked the door and leaned against it, her heart still racing. Through the wood, she could hear Minjun on the phone, speaking rapid Korean. His voice was cold, commanding, nothing like the careful gentleness he'd used with her. She was in so far over her head, but what choice did she have? Amma pulled out her phone and typed a message to her roommate, Akko. Had to leave suddenly. Family emergency. Will explain later. Then she called her mother, knowing it was morning in Ghana. Her mother's face filled the screen, already frowning. Amma, why are you calling at this hour? What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, Mum. I wanted to hear your voice. Don't lie to me, child. You look terrible. What happened? Amma couldn't tell her the truth, could barely process it herself. I got a new job, a better one. I'll be able to send more money home. Her mother's frown deepened. What kind of job? Office manager, at a security company. It's legitimate, I promise. Amma adwoa mensa, you're hiding something from me. I'm just tired, Mum. It's been a long day. They talked for a few more minutes, her mother updating her on Kofi's university classes, her younger sister's school performance, normal, ordinary things that felt surreal after the night she'd had. When she hung up, Amma caught sight of herself in the mirror above the dresser. Her uniform was torn and stained with blood. Her hair was falling out of its bun. Her dark skin looked ashen with exhaustion. But her eyes looked different, alive in a way they hadn't been in years. Terrified, yes, but also awake. She changed into the clothes she found in the closet, expensive loungewear that was too big but clean, crawled into bed that was softer than anything she'd ever slept on. And despite everything, despite the fear and the chaos and the impossible situation she'd stumbled into, Amma fell asleep almost immediately. In the living room, Minjun stared out at Seoul's skyline and tried to process what had just happened. Haejin had tried to have him killed. His father would see this as a failure, a broken alliance, a humiliated family. The wedding had been scheduled for 3 months from now, a merger of territory and resources, his father had called it. Minjun had accepted it the way he'd accepted everything else his father demanded. He'd known Haejin didn't love him. He hadn't loved her either. It was business. That's all relationships in his world ever were. Except she'd hated him enough to orchestrate his murder rather than just call off the wedding, and he'd been saved by a Ghanaian waitress with brave eyes and a moral compass that made no sense in his world. Amma Mensah. She'd risked her life to save a stranger, hadn't asked for anything in return, hadn't even wanted the whiskey he'd offered. She's trouble, Jin said from the doorway. Minjun didn't turn. She saved my life. Which is why we'll protect her, but she's still trouble. Jin moved to stand beside him. She'll make you feel things, want things, and men like us don't get to want things. Men like us are exactly why women like her have to hide in the shadows. Jin was quiet for a moment. You like her? It wasn't a question. Minjun thought about Amma's laughter in the face of danger, her refusal to be saved when she needed opportunity, the way she'd tucked her grandmother's necklace beneath her uniform like a secret, the way his hand had felt holding hers. I respect her, he said finally. Jin snorted. That's worse. Respect turns into other things. Complicated things. Then I'll deal with complicated. Your father won't approve. Neither will hers, probably. A Korean crime boss and an undocumented immigrant. This has disaster written all over it. I'm not planning to marry her, Jin. I'm planning to keep her alive. Sure. Jin headed toward his room. Keep telling yourself that. Alone again, Minjun pulled out his phone and looked at the photos from tonight's attack. 3 dead men, all from the Choi family. Haejin's family. The alliance was destroyed. War was probably coming. But he was alive, because a woman he'd never met had decided his life was worth saving. He thought about the way she'd looked at him, not with fear exactly, but with wariness. The way she'd questioned his motivations, the way she'd insisted on opportunity, not rescue. Jin was right, she was trouble, but for the first time in years, Minjun found himself actually looking forward to tomorrow. 3 weeks later, Amma stood in front of Minjun's security firm office and wondered how her life had become so unrecognizable. The visa paperwork was progressing faster than should have been possible. Minjun had lawyers and connections that made bureaucracy disappear. She had a legitimate job now, a salary that let her send twice as much money home. She had an office with her name on the door. Ama Mensa, operations manager. She had no idea what she was doing. "You'll figure it out," Minjun had said when he'd shown her the office. "You're smart. You managed 3 years undocumented in a foreign country. Managing my calendar will be easy by comparison." He'd been wrong. Korean corporate culture was a maze of hierarchies and unspoken rules. She had to bow at the right depth to the right people, had to speak with the right level of formality, had to navigate being the only black woman in a building full of Korean men who did security work for Seoul's elite. Some of them were kind, most were wary, a few were openly hostile, but Minjun's protection was absolute. He'd made it clear on her first day, "Disrespect her and you answer to me." No one disrespected her, at least not where he could hear. "Amasi, you have a call on line 3, the receptionist said in careful English. Amma picked up. "Operations office, this is Amma speaking." "You sound so professional." Akko's warm voice filled the line. "I barely recognize you." Amma smiled, switching to English. She'd been speaking Korean all day, and her accent was getting better, but it was exhausting. "How are you?" "Missing my roommate. When are you coming to visit?" "Soon." "I've just been busy with your handsome boss." Akko's tone was teasing. "The one you're definitely not developing feelings for." "Akko, girl, I've seen the way you talk about him. Minjun says this. Minjun thinks that. You're in trouble. He's my boss, and it's complicated. It's always complicated. Come to church on Sunday. We miss you." Amma felt a pang of homesickness for her Ghanaian community. She'd been avoiding them since taking this job, afraid of the questions, afraid of the judgment. "I'll try." "Don't try. Do. We're your family here." After they hung up, Amma sat staring at her computer screen. Akko was right. She'd been isolating herself, living in Minjun's world, forgetting she had one of her own. "Working hard?" Minjun appeared in her doorway, jacket slung over his shoulder. It was late, past 7. Most of the office had gone home. "Just finishing up." Amma closed her laptop. "Did you need something? Have you eaten?" She hadn't. Had been surviving on coffee and the rice balls the receptionist sometimes brought her. "I'll grab something on the way home." "Home is my apartment, which has no food because neither of us cooks." Minjun leaned against the doorframe. "There's a place nearby, Korean-Chinese fusion. You'll like it." "Is this a work dinner? Does it need to be?" They looked at each other, and Amma felt that spark again, the one she'd been trying to ignore for 3 weeks, the one that flared every time he brought her coffee, every time their hands brushed passing documents, every time he smiled, that almost smile that made her think he was capable of real happiness if someone could just remind him how. "I should probably go back to my apartment," she said. "Start looking for my own place. I can't live in your guest room forever." "Why not? It's convenient. Jin likes having someone else around, and you're safe there. Because it's your space, and I work for you. There are boundaries." "Boundaries," Minjun repeated. He pushed off the doorframe, came into her office, sat on the edge of her desk. "Is that what we're calling this? What else would we call it?" "I don't know." He was close enough that she could smell his cologne, see the faint scar above his left eyebrow. "But I don't think it's just professional anymore, do you?" Amma's heart was racing. "Minjun, it's been 3 weeks. You've reorganized my entire office, fixed the scheduling system that was a disaster, and made yourself essential. But you still call me Mr. Kang in front of the staff. Still keep your distance. Still act like you're just passing through." "I am just passing through. Once the visa is sorted, I'll find my own apartment, live my own life. Is that what you want?" "It's what makes sense." "That's not what I asked." Amma stood, needing space, needing air. "What do you want me to say? That I think about you constantly, That I'm grateful and confused and terrified because you're powerful and dangerous and kind in ways I didn't expect. That every time you look at me like you're looking at me right now, I forget how to breathe. The words hung between them. Minjun stood too. Come to dinner with me, not as boss and employee, just as us. Whatever this is, let's figure it out. Your world tried to kill me 3 weeks ago. My world tried to kill me too, but we're still here. He held out his hand. One dinner. If you hate it, we'll go back to strictly professional. I promise. Arma looked at his hand. She should say no, should maintain those boundaries, should remember that he was a crime boss and she was an immigrant trying to build a legitimate life. Instead, she took his hand. One dinner, she agreed. The restaurant was small and warm, tucked down a side street in Itaewon. The owner clearly knew Minjun, greeted him in rapid Korean, led them to a private corner booth, brought them tea without asking. You come here often? Amma asked, accepting the menu written entirely in Korean and Chinese. When I need to think, the food is good, the owner doesn't ask questions. Minjun scanned his menu. Do you trust me to order? Should I? Probably not, but I promise nothing too adventurous. He ordered in Korean, the owner nodding and smiling at Amma before disappearing into the kitchen. What did you order? Amma asked. Jjajangmyeon, black bean noodles, tangsuyuk, sweet and sour pork, some dumplings. And since you mentioned you miss home cooking, I asked if they could make something simple and not too spicy. We'll see what he comes up with. You remembered I said that? I remember everything you say. The admission hung between them. Amma took a sip of tea to cover her reaction. Tell me about Ghana, Minjun said. Your family, what you left behind. So she did. Told him about growing up in Accra, about her father's small import business, about how he died suddenly when she was 18 and everything had fallen apart, about her mother's desperate decision to send Amma abroad to work, to send money back, to save the family. I was supposed to go to university, Amma said quietly, had a scholarship, but after my father died, we needed money more than we needed my degree. So I came here, worked, sent everything home. That's a heavy burden for one person. It's family, that's what you do. Minjun was quiet for a moment. My father would say the same thing, except in his world, family means obligation, sacrifice, becoming what they need you to be, not what you want to be. And what do you want to be? I don't know. I've been what he made me for so long. I don't remember if I ever wanted anything else. He met her eyes. Until recently. What changed recently? A woman slipped me a note and saved my life, made me realize I might actually want to live. The food arrived before Amma could respond. Steaming bowls of noodles, crispy fried pork, dumplings that looked perfect. And to her surprise, a bowl of rice with what looked like a simple stewed chicken and vegetables. He said his wife is from Kenya, Minjun explained. She made this. Said if you're homesick for African food, this might help. Amma felt tears prick her eyes. Such a small kindness, but it hit her hard. She tasted it. Simple, clean flavors. Nothing like Ghanaian food, but somehow comforting in its honesty. Thank you, she whispered. They ate in comfortable silence. Minjun showed her how to properly mix the jjajangmyeon, laughing when she got black bean sauce on her nose. Ama taught him the proper way to eat with his hands, breaking off pieces of the chicken the way she would have at home. Your mother, Minjun said eventually, does she know about your job, about me? She knows I have a better job. That's all. If I told her the rest, that I'm working for a man involved in organized crime, that I'm living in his apartment, she'd have a heart attack. And if she knew you were having dinner with me, not as your boss, but as whatever this is, Amma set down her chopsticks. She'd tell me to come home immediately. She's already anxious about me being in Korea. If she knew I was getting involved with a Korean man, especially one in your line of work, she'd never forgive me. Would she be wrong to worry? Probably not. Amma met his gaze. Your world is dangerous. You said it yourself. People want you dead. Getting close to you means I'm a target too. Yes. So why are we here? Because for the first time in years, I want something that isn't about duty or family or business. I want to know you, and I hope, you want to know me too. Amma couldn't deny it. These 3 weeks working together, she'd seen glimpses of the man behind the armor, the way he was patient with the receptionist who kept making mistakes, the way he'd personally called to ensure Amma's visa paperwork was priority, the way he sometimes stood at his office window, staring out at the city with an expression that looked like longing. I do want to know you, she admitted, but I'm scared. Of me, of this, of wanting something I shouldn't want, of letting myself feel safe when I know better. Minjun reached across the table, his hand palm up. An invitation. I can't promise you safety. My world doesn't work that way, but I can promise honesty, and I can promise that as long as I'm alive, no one will hurt you. Amma looked at his hand, thought about all the reasons this was a terrible idea, thought about her mother's disapproval, thought about the danger, thought about how little she actually knew him. Then she thought about how he'd asked permission to order her food, how he'd shielded her body with his own, how he looked at her like she mattered. She placed her hand in his fingers closed around hers, warm and steady. They sat like that, hands joined across the table, while Sol hummed outside and something impossible began to take root between them. So what now? Amma asked. Now we finish dinner, and then I take you home, and tomorrow we figure out how to do this without getting either of us killed. That's a terrible plan. Do you have a better one? Amma thought about it. No, she admitted. Minjun smiled, a real smile this time, not the almost smile. It transformed his face, made him look younger, lighter. Then I guess we're in trouble together. I guess we are. They finished their meal, talking about safer things, her favourite books, his hatred of coffee despite drinking it constantly, her dreams of someday opening a restaurant, his admission that he'd never actually travelled outside Korea despite having the money to go anywhere. When the bill came, Minjun paid before Amma could reach for her wallet. I have my own money now, she protested. I know, but I asked you to dinner. Let me. They walked back to the car, where Jin was waiting. The drive to the apartment was quiet, but not uncomfortable. Amma was aware of Minjun beside her, of the small distance between them on the back seat, of the way her hand still tingled from holding his. At the apartment, she headed toward the guest room, paused. Thank you for tonight. Thank you for saying yes. She should have kept walking, should have gone to her room, locked the door, maintained boundaries. Instead, she turned back. Minjun? Yes? I'm glad I warned you, that night at the restaurant. I'm glad you're alive. Something in his expression softened. So am I. They stood there in the hallway, neither moving. The moment stretched, filled with possibility. Then Amma's phone rang, shattering it. She pulled it out, saw her mother's name. I should... Take it. I'll see you in the morning. He disappeared into his own room, and Amma answered the call, her heart still racing. Mom, is everything okay? Kofi told me he hasn't received money for this month's fees. Amma, what's happening? Amma closed her eyes. She'd been so caught up in her new job, in navigating this impossible attraction to Minjun, that she'd forgotten to transfer money. I'm sorry. I'll send it tomorrow. You're worrying me. This isn't like you. Are you in trouble? No, I promise. Everything's fine. Better than fine. I told you my new job pays well. Then why do you sound so stressed? Because I'm falling for a man I shouldn't want. Because I'm living in a world I don't understand. Because for the first time in 3 years, I'm thinking about what I want instead of what everyone needs from me. I'm just tired, Mum. I'll call you this weekend, okay? After they hung up, Amma stood in the hallway and tried to remember who she was supposed to be. The dutiful daughter, the responsible sister, the invisible immigrant who sent money home and asked for nothing. But that woman felt further away every day. 2 months into working at Minjun's security firm, Amma's life had developed a rhythm. She arrived at the office at 8, left at 6, managed schedules, dealt with clients, learned Korean corporate etiquette, sent money home every month, more than she used to, which made her mother happy and kept the questions at bay. She still lived in Minjun's apartment. They'd stopped discussing her moving out. It had become simply where she lived, and they'd become something, not quite dating, more than friends. They had dinner together most nights. Either Jin cooked, or they ordered in, or Minjun took her to small restaurants where the owners knew him and asked no questions. They talked about everything and nothing, their childhoods, their fears, their dreams that felt impossible in the lives they were living. They hadn't kissed, hadn't crossed that final line, but the tension between them was thick enough to drown in. Tonight, Amma was attempting to cook. She'd found a Korean grocery that sold African ingredients, palm oil, plantains, cassava, even dried fish. She'd bought what she needed to make jollof rice, determined to share this piece of home with Minjun. Jin had tactfully disappeared for the evening. Minjun was still at the office, dealing with some crisis. Amma had the kitchen to herself. She was sautéing onions and tomatoes when she heard the door open. "Something smells amazing," Minjun said, appearing in the kitchen. He'd loosened his tie, rolled up his sleeves. "What are you making?" "Jollof rice and plantains. I wanted you to try real Ghanaian food, not just whatever fusion restaurants guess we might like. Can I help?" "You cook?" "No, but I can watch and learn." So he did, pulled up a stool and sat while Amma worked, asking questions about each ingredient, each step. She explained how every West African country claimed to make the best jollof, how it was a point of national pride, how her grandmother had taught her and her grandmother before her. "It's like kimchi," Minjun said. "Every Korean family thinks theirs is the best. My grandmother's was. Even my father admits it." "Tell me about her, your grandmother." "She's the only one in my family who ever asked what I wanted." Minjun accepted the spoon Amma offered, tasted the rice. His eyes widened. "This is incredible." "It's not done yet." "I don't care. This is already the best thing I've ever tasted." Amma laughed, pleased. "You're easy to impress." "Only by you." The words hung between them. Amma focused on stirring the rice, hyper-aware of Minjun watching her. "My grandmother would like you," he said quietly. "She's always telling me I need to stop living for my father and start living for myself. That duty without joy is just a slow death." She sounds wise. She is. She's also the only one who might not disown me for... He stopped. "For what?" "For wanting this. You. Whatever this is between us." Amma's hand stilled on the spoon. "Minjun, I know it's complicated. I know your family would disapprove. I know mine definitely would. I know I'm the last person you should get involved with." He stood, moved closer. "But I can't stop thinking about you, and I don't want to anymore." Amma set down the spoon, turned to face him. He was close enough to touch, close enough to kiss. "This is a terrible idea. I know. Your world is dangerous. My mother would never forgive me. We come from completely different places." "I know. And you're still my boss. There are power dynamics here that..." "Amma." He cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing her cheek. "Do you want this? Want me? Not because I'm your boss, or because you owe me, or because it's convenient, but because you feel what I feel when we're together." She looked into his eyes, those tired, honest eyes that had seen too much but somehow still looked at her with wonder. "Yes," she whispered, "I want this. God help me, I want you. Then let me kiss you. It's going to change everything." "Good." He lowered his head slowly, giving her time to pull away. She didn't. Their lips met softly at first, tentative, testing. Then Amma's hands slid into his hair, and Minjun pulled her closer, and the kiss deepened into something that felt inevitable, like a dam breaking, like coming home. They kissed until the rice started to burn, until Amma broke away laughing, turning off the stove. "I ruined dinner," she gasped. "I don't care." Minjun kissed her neck, her jaw, her lips again. "We can order something later." Later? Much later. He lifted her onto the counter, and Amma wrapped her legs around his waist, and they kissed like they were trying to make up for 2 months of restraint in a single night. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Minjun rested his forehead against hers. "I need to ask you something," he said. "Okay, your mother, your family. If this gets serious, and I want it to get serious, they're going to find out eventually. Are you prepared for that?" Amma's heart clenched. "No, but I don't think I can stop this now. Can you?" "No." He kissed her softly. "But I won't lie to you. My father will never approve. My family will see this as another way I'm failing to live up to expectations. And if your family is anything like mine, they'll see me as exactly what you are. Dangerous, powerful, wrong for me in every way that matters to them. And yet I'm choosing this anyway." Amma cupped his face. "I'm choosing you, whatever that costs." They sealed it with another kiss, deeper this time, hungrier. The jollof rice could wait. Everything could wait. For the first time in 3 years, Amma was choosing what she wanted instead of what everyone needed her to be. And it felt like freedom. Loving this forbidden romance? Subscribe for more, because the real complications are about to begin. 6 months into their relationship, Amma woke to Minjun's phone buzzing insistently. She was in his bed now, had been for 4 months. They'd stopped pretending, stopped maintaining separate rooms. She slept wrapped in his arms, his breath warm against her neck, and woke feeling safer than she had in years, except for mornings like this, when his phone shattered the peace. Minjun groaned, reached for it without opening his eyes, saw the name, went completely still. "Who is it?" Amma asked sleepily. "My father," he answered in Korean, his voice instantly different, harder, formal. Amma couldn't understand most of it, but she caught tone. His father was angry. Minjun sat up, running a hand through his hair. "Ne, abeoji." "Yes, father," over and over. When he hung up, his jaw was clenched. What did he want? "There's a war brewing. The Alliance. I destroyed when Heijin tried to kill me. Her family is moving against ours. 3 of our men were killed last week. My father says it's my fault for humiliating them." "Is he right?" "Probably." Minjun stood, began dressing. "He's demanding I fix it, marry into another family, restore alliances." Amma's blood went cold. "What?" "He's arranging a meeting with the Choi family, their daughter. He expects me to agree to an engagement." "And will you?" Minjun looked at her, and she saw the war in his eyes. "No, but refusing will have consequences. For me. For my position. For the men who depend on me." "What are you going to do?" "I don't know yet." He came back to the bed, kissed her forehead. "But I'm not losing you, whatever it costs." He left for the meeting, and Amma lay in bed staring at the ceiling, her heart racing. This was always going to happen. She'd known it intellectually, but facing it was different. She got up, showered, dressed, went to work because she didn't know what else to do. Akko called around lunch. "Girl, we need to talk. I saw something online." "What?" "Photos of you and Minjun leaving a restaurant. You're holding hands." Amma's stomach dropped. "Where did you see this?" "Korean gossip sites. They're calling you Mafia heir's African mistress. The comments are, they're not good, Amma. Send me the link. She hung up and opened the article Akko forwarded. There were photos. Her and Min Jun at that Korean-Chinese fusion place they loved, walking to his car, his hand at the small of her back. Her face was clear. So was his. The headlines were in Korean, but the translation app made them clear enough. Kang Min Jun's foreign girlfriend scandal. Crime family heir dating African woman. But it was the comments that gutted her. Racist filth about her skin, her body, her worth. Questions about whether she was a prostitute, a gold digger, an illegal immigrant using him for papers. She was reading them when her phone rang again. Her mother's face filled the screen. She looked devastated. Amma, I just received a call from Mrs. Osei. She saw something online. Photos of you with a Korean man. She said people are calling you terrible names. She said he's a criminal. Amma couldn't speak. Asamben? What is happening? Who is this man? Mom, I can explain. You're dating him, this criminal, while lying to me about your life there. I didn't lie, you told me you had a good job. You didn't tell me you were living with a gangster, Amma. The whole community here is talking. Do you know what this does to our family? To your sister's marriage prospects? Mum, please, I want you to come home. Book a ticket. Today, leave this man, this life, before you destroy everything. I can't just leave. Yes, you can. You will. Ama adwoa mensa. I am your mother. I'm telling you to come home now. The call ended. Ama sat at her desk, hands shaking. Around her, the office was buzzing. People had seen the article, were whispering, staring. Jin appeared in her doorway. You should go home. Minjun called, said to get you out of here. What about him? He's in a meeting with his father. It's not going well. Amma let Jin drive her back to the apartment. She sat on the couch, numb, while Jin made tea she didn't drink. Her phone kept ringing. Her mother, Kofi, her sisters, the church pastor, Akko. She turned it off. Minjun came home hours later, his knuckles bruised. What happened? Amma asked. My father issued an ultimatum. End this. Marry the Choi girl. Restore the alliance. Or he strips me of my position, my inheritance, everything. What did you say? I said no. Min Jun. I said no, Amma. I told him I'm in love with you, that I'm not ending this, that he can disown me if he wants, but I'm done living for his empire. Amma felt tears sting her eyes. My mother saw the photos. She's demanding I come home. The Ghanaian community is gossiping. My family is humiliated. What do you want to do? I don't know. This was supposed to be private. Now everyone knows. Both our families are furious. Your father might disown you. My mother thinks I've destroyed our family's reputation. How do we come back from this? Minjun knelt in front of her, took her hands. We don't come back. We go forward. Together. Or we don't go at all, but I need to know, are you in this with me, even if it costs everything? Amma looked at him. This man who'd protected her, learned her culture, made her laugh, made her feel seen in ways she never had before. This man who was willing to lose everything for her. I'm terrified, she whispered. So am I, but I'm more terrified of losing you. What if we can't fix this? What if our families never accept us? Then we find a different family. People who understand. We build something new. Amma leaned forward, pressed her forehead to his. My mother will never forgive me. My father already hasn't. This is insane. I know. He kissed her softly. But I love you, and I think you love me too. I do. The words came out broken. I love you so much it terrifies me. Then we fight. For this. For us. Whatever it takes. She kissed him then, desperate and afraid and determined. They made love on the couch, clinging to each other like the world was ending. Maybe it was. But they were still here, still choosing each other. For now, that would have to be enough. The next 3 weeks were brutal. Minjun's father moved forward with the arranged marriage anyway, announcing an engagement without Minjun's consent. The media exploded with the scandal, Kang Minjun publicly refusing his father's choice, reportedly over his African girlfriend. Amma faced worse. Immigration came to the office, tipped off anonymously. Her visa application was suddenly under review. Without Minjun's lawyers, she would have been deported immediately. It was Hey Jin reported, or her family, revenge for the broken engagement. Her mother called daily, begging her to come home. Her siblings were more understanding, Kofi especially, but even they worried about the danger. "He's Mafia, sis," Kofi said gently during one call. "I want you to be happy, but I also want you to be alive." The Ghanaian church community in Seoul was split. Some supported her quietly. Others whispered that she was a disgrace, sleeping with a Korean gangster for money and status. Akko remained fiercely loyal, but even she was scared. "I love you and I support you," she told Amma over jjajangmyeon one night. "But girl, this is dangerous. His family wants you gone. Your family wants you home. How long can you fight both sides?" Amma didn't have an answer. Minjun's world was closing in too. The rival gang war was escalating. His father's arranged marriage to the Choi girl was supposedly the only thing that could stop it. Without that alliance, men were dying. "Your men," Amma said one night, watching him stare out the apartment windows. "They're loyal to you, but how long before they resent me for the war? They don't blame you." "Not yet." He turned to her. "Are you thinking about leaving? Are you thinking about going through with the marriage?" They stared at each other, the question hanging between them. "No," Minjun said finally. "I'll find another way to stop the war. But I won't marry someone else. Even if it saves lives?" Even then, he crossed to her, pulled her close. "I know what I'm asking of you, to stay with me, despite everything. It's not fair. Love isn't fair." Amma buried her face in his chest. "It's just real." 2 months later, everything imploded. Amma was late. She stared at the pregnancy test in her bathroom, hands shaking. Positive, unmistakably positive. She was pregnant with Minjun's child. The timing couldn't have been worse. His father's arranged marriage was scheduled for 6 weeks from now. A wedding Minjun was supposedly boycotting, but pressure was mounting. 3 more men had died in the gang war. His father had made it clear. Marry the Choi girl or watch more people die because of your selfishness. And now there was a baby. Amma hid the test. Couldn't tell Minjun yet. Needed to think. Needed to breathe. That same day, Korean news sites exploded with an announcement. Kang Minjun and Choi Seo-yoon. Official engagement. Wedding date set. Amma saw it at work. The headline scrolling across her computer screen. Photos of Minjun in a suit, standing next to a beautiful Korean woman in traditional dress. They were holding hands at what looked like an official press conference. The caption, "Crime Family Alliance Restored, Kang Choi Marriage to End Territorial Dispute." Amma's world tilted. He'd said he wouldn't, had promised, but there he was, in photos that looked recent. Smiling next to his bride-to-be, she ran to the bathroom, threw up. Morning sickness or heartbreak, she couldn't tell. Akko found her there. "Amma, he's getting married. He chose. His family over me. Of course he did. You don't know that. Maybe it's not what it looks like. He's holding her hand, Akko. There are photos." Amma went home early, ignoring Minjun's calls. She couldn't talk to him, couldn't look at him. The man in those photos, standing next to a Korean woman, smiling for cameras, restoring his father's alliance. That wasn't the man who'd promised to choose her. Or maybe it was. Maybe Jin had been right from the beginning. She was trouble, a complication. And when it mattered, when lives were actually on the line, Minjun had chosen the practical path. The pregnancy test was still in her purse. She should tell him. He deserved to know, but looking at those photos, Amma couldn't. If he was going through with the marriage, then her child, their child, was better off without him. better off back in Ghana, where Amma could raise them in peace, away from this violent world. She booked a ticket home, left for the following week. Then she went to say goodbye to the one person in Minjun's family who'd shown her kindness. Halmeoni's house was traditional Korean, all sliding doors and careful gardens. The grandmother answered the door herself, took one look at Amma's face, and simply said, "Come, sit." They had tea in silence. Finally, Amma spoke. "I came to thank you for your kindness. I'm leaving Korea, going back to Ghana." Because of the engagement, he made his choice. Halmeoni sipped her tea. Did he? I saw the photos. He's marrying her. He's planning to refuse her at the altar, publicly, has been planning it for weeks. Didn't tell you because he's an idiot who thinks protecting you means lying to you. Amma's breath caught. What? My grandson is many things. Honourable when it counts, loyal to a fault, and catastrophically bad at communication. Halmeoni set down her cup. He told me about you, asked my blessing. I gave it. You make him want to live, not just survive. But he's also terrified of his father, so he's playing along publicly while planning to humiliate him privately. That'll get him killed. Yes, my son doesn't tolerate defiance. If Minjun refuses that marriage publicly, I fear what will happen. Amma's pregnancy test fell from her purse as she reached for her tea. It clattered to the table between them. Halmeoni looked at it, looked at Amma. Does he know? No. You have to tell him. If I tell him, he'll do something reckless. Your son will possibly kill him, yes. Halmeoni reached across, took Amma's hand. But this is his child too, his choice too. You can't make it for him. What if making him choose gets him killed? What if not letting him choose kills his soul? Amma felt tears slip down her face. I don't know what to do. Yes, you do. You've always known. Halmeoni squeezed her hand. You're stronger than you think. Braver. Go to him. Tell him the truth. Let him decide. Trust him to fight for what matters. What if he chooses wrong? Then at least it was his choice, not yours for him. Amma sat in that traditional Korean house, holding hands with a grandmother who wasn't hers, and realized she'd been doing it again, sacrificing, deciding for others, running away to protect people who hadn't asked for protection. She'd done it with her family, sacrificing university to send money home. She was doing it now, deciding Minjun should marry the Choi girl to keep him safe. Deciding their child was better off without a father, deciding everything without asking anyone what they actually wanted. I'm so scared, she whispered. Good. Bravery without fear is just foolishness. Bravery with fear is love. Amma went back to the apartment. Minjun still wasn't home, probably at another meeting with his father, another staged appearance with his fake fiancée. She packed a bag, not to leave for Ghana, to leave for Arko's cousin's place, the safe house in the Ghanaian community. She needed space, needed to think. She left a note. I can't watch you die for me. You'll be a better leader than your father. Marry well. Be safe. Forgive me. I'll always love you. She didn't mention the pregnancy. Couldn't. Not yet. Ako's cousin welcomed her, no questions asked. The Ghanaian community closed ranks around her, protecting their own. For 2 weeks, Amma hid. Minjun tore Seoul apart, looking for her. Called everyone, offered money, demanded information, but the Ghanaian community was silent. She'd asked them to be, and they protected her. He thought she'd abandoned him. She thought she was saving him. Both of them were wrong. Minjun stood in the dressing room of the wedding hall, straightening his tie with numb fingers. The wedding was today. In 2 hours, he'd walk down the aisle, bow to the Choi girl, and bind himself to a loveless marriage that would secure his father's empire and end the gang war. Except he wasn't going to do it. He was going to refuse, publicly, in front of everyone. destroy the alliance, humiliate his father, and damn the consequences. Because Amma had left him a note saying she loved him but couldn't watch him die, because she disappeared to protect him, because even now, believing she'd given up on them, he couldn't give up on her. "You're really doing this?" Jin asked, adjusting his own formal wear. "I'm really doing this. Your father will disown you, possibly kill you. I know. The war will continue. More men will die. I know. And Amma's gone. You don't even know where she is." "I know." Minjun looked at himself in the mirror. White hanbok, traditional groom's attire. He looked like a stranger. "But I can't do this. Can't become my father. Can't choose duty over—" Jin's phone rang. He answered, listened, his eyes widening. "You're sure? Positive?" He hung up. "Minjun, you need to hear this." "What?" "My contact in the Ghanaian community. Amma's there. She's pregnant." Minjun stopped breathing. "She's been hiding at a community safe house, planning to leave for Ghana tomorrow. She's carrying your child, and she was going to leave without telling you." Pregnant. Amma was pregnant with his child, and she was leaving tomorrow. "Where is she?" Jin told him. Minjun was halfway to the door when his father appeared, blocking it. "Where do you think you're going? The ceremony starts in 1 hour. I'm not going through with it." "Yes, you are." His father's voice was ice. "Or I will destroy everything you care about. That African woman, I'll make sure she's deported and blacklisted. Your friends, your men who stayed loyal, I'll crush them. You will marry the Choi girl, or I will tear apart everything you love, even if you kill me, if necessary." They stared at each other, father and son, patriarch and heir, two men who'd never understood each other. "I'm in love with her," Minjun said quietly. "Amma, I'm in love with her. She's carrying my child, and I'm not marrying anyone else. Disown me, kill me if you want, but I'm done living your life." He pushed past his father and ran. Amma was packing when she heard the commotion downstairs. Akko's cousin's apartment was above a Ghanaian grocery in Itaewon. She could hear arguing in the shop below, raised voices in English and Korean, then footsteps pounding up the stairs. The door burst open. Minjun stood there, wild-eyed, still in his wedding hanbok, breathing hard. "You're pregnant," he said. Amma's hands stilled on her suitcase. "Halmione told you." "Jin's contact told me. Halmione confirmed when I called her. You were going to leave without telling me. You're supposed to be at your wedding." "I was. I left. I'm not marrying her, Amma. I was never going to. I was planning to refuse at the altar, destroy my father's alliance, choose you publicly. I just didn't tell you because I'm an idiot who thought protecting you meant lying. It would have gotten you killed. Maybe, but it would have been my choice. Just like this." He gestured at her suitcase. "Should have been mine too. You're carrying my child, and you were going to leave without even telling me." "To protect you? I don't need protecting." Minjun crossed the room, took her hands. "I need you. I need honesty. I need you to trust me enough to let me choose, even if it's dangerous, especially if it's dangerous. Your father will kill you if you defy him. My father can try, but I have my grandmother's protection, my brother's support, and more importantly, I have you, if you'll still have me, even though I'm an idiot who handles everything wrong." Ama felt tears streaming down her face. "I was so scared." "So was I. I still am, but I'm more scared of losing you, losing this." He placed his hand on her stomach. "Our child, our future. I don't care what it costs. It'll cost everything. Your inheritance, your position, maybe your life. Then I'll pay it. Gladly, if it means you stay. My mother will never forgive me. My father already hasn't. We'll be alone. We'll have each other. We'll have our child. We'll build something new, better than what either of our families gave us." Amma looked at him. This man in traditional wedding clothes meant for another woman, who'd abandoned his own ceremony to find her, who was choosing her even though it meant losing everything. "The wedding," she said. "It's today, right now. Yes, they'll be waiting. Your bride, your family, everyone. I don't care. I do. Amma grabbed her brightest kente cloth from her suitcase, the yellow and red one her grandmother had given her, started wrapping it around herself. If you're going to humiliate your father and destroy an alliance, you should at least let me be there. Minjun's eyes widened. Amma, I'm done running, done hiding, done letting fear make my choices. She placed her hand over his on her stomach. We made this child together. We'll face what comes together. So take me to your wedding. Let's show them exactly who you're choosing. It's going to be a disaster. Good, I'm tired of quiet anyway. He kissed her then, deep and desperate. When they broke apart, both breathless, he said, I love you. God, I love you so much. I love you too. Now, let's go crash your wedding. The wedding hall was massive, traditional, filled with Seoul's criminal elite. Minjun's entire family was there. The Choi family, business associates, media waiting outside to document the alliance that would end the gang war. When Amma walked in and visibly pregnant in bright kente cloth, every head turned. The whispers started immediately. Shock, outrage, fascination. She walked down the center aisle, head high, while Minjun stood at the altar in his white hanbok, bride beside him in traditional dress. The room went silent as Amma stopped halfway. Excuse me, she said in careful Korean, her accent thick but determined. I'm sorry to interrupt, but I need to say something. Minjun turned to his bride, removed the engagement ring, handed it back gently. I'm sorry, I can't do this. Then he walked off the altar, down the steps, toward Amma. The room exploded. His father stood, face thunderous. Kang Minjun, you will stop this now. Minjun ignored him, reached Amma, took her hand. To the room, to his father specifically, he said in Korean, I've lived my whole life for this family. I've killed for you, lied for you, buried my soul for you, but I won't die for you, not anymore. I love her, I choose our child. If that costs me everything, take it. I'll build something new. His father's voice was deadly quiet. Then you are no son of mine. You are stripped of title, inheritance, protection. You are dead to this family. The words hung in the air. Then an elderly voice cut through the silence. Aigu, all this noise. Halmeoni stood from her seat at the front. The room silenced immediately. Even Minjun's father deferred to the matriarch. She walked slowly to where Minjun and Amma stood, her traditional hanbok rustling, looked at her grandson, looked at Amma. You taught him strength, she said to her son. Minjun's father. You taught him honor. You taught him to make hard choices. Don't punish him for using your lessons. To the room. He chooses love over power. That's not weakness. That's evolution. She took Amma's hand, then Minjun's, placed them together. I bless this union. And if you disown him, you disown me too. I'll leave this family and live with them. Minjun's father's face went white. His mother, the matriarch, was threatening to leave. The family would revolt before they let that happen. Aomiyoni, he started. No, you've made him into what you wanted. Now let him become what he needs, or lose us both. The standoff stretched. Father and mother, tradition and change. Finally, Min Seok stood, Minjun's younger brother. I'll take his position. Let him go. To Minjun, quietly, be free for both of us. Minjun's father looked between his sons. His mother, the ruined alliance. Finally, he spoke. Fine, go, but you are nothing to me. Never return. Minjun bowed once. Respect for position if not the man. Then he turned to Amma. Saranghae, she smiled through tears. I love you. Together, they walked out of the wedding hall. Halmeoni followed, Jin, a handful of Minjun's men who chose loyalty over position. Behind them, chaos. Ahead, uncertainty, but they were choosing it together. 6 months later, Ama stood in the construction site of what would be her restaurant, one hand on her very pregnant belly. "The kitchen is bigger than I thought," she said, looking at the space. "You wanted room for both Ghanaian and Korean cooking stations." Minjun appeared beside her, reviewing blueprints. "This is what you asked for. It's perfect. It's not even finished yet. It's still perfect." They stood together in the dusty, half-built space that would become Akwaba, Welcome, a restaurant serving Ghanaian Korean fusion, a gathering place for the family they were building. Minjun's grandmother had given them money secretly. His men who'd followed him had pooled resources. The Ghanaian community had invested. Together, they'd created something new. "Your mother sent money again," Minjun said carefully. Ama's mother hadn't called since the wedding disaster, but every month, money appeared in an account for the grandchild's medical expenses. It wasn't acceptance, but it was something. "And yours?" Ama asked. "Min Seok visited yesterday, brought gifts from Halmeoni, said mother asks about us but won't admit it. Father still refuses to acknowledge I exist. Do you regret it?" Minjun turned to her, placed his hand over hers on her belly. "Not for a second. Do you?" Amma thought about her mother's silence, the church gossip, the relationship she'd lost, the life she'd left behind. Then she thought about this, their restaurant, their child, their freedom. "No," she said, "not for a second." Their daughter was born 3 months later, Adwoa Sujin Kang Mensa, born on a Tuesday, like her Ghanaian naming tradition, Korean middle, name for her father's heritage, 2 family names to honour both worlds. Halmeoni taught her Korean lullabies, Akko taught her Twi songs. She would grow up speaking 3 languages, eating both countries' food, belonging to both cultures, and neither. She would grow up free. 2 years later, Akwaba's grand opening was chaos in the best way. The restaurant was packed, Ghanaian families mixing with Korean neighbours, Minjun's former men now working as legitimate security, Akko managing the bar, Jin teaching cooking classes, the walls decorated with both cultures' art, menus in 3 languages. Adwoa toddled between tables, babbling in her unique mix of Korean and Twi, charming everyone. Halmeoni sat in the corner, holding court like the matriarch she was. Min Seok visited secretly, bringing gifts from their mother, who still wouldn't come, but was softening slowly. Kofi was there, visiting from university in Ghana. He was out now, after Amma and Minjun's courage had inspired him. Their parents were adjusting slowly, and Amma's mother had sent money for the grand opening with a note, "For my granddaughter's future." Not much, but more than silence. Amma moved through the space she'd built, watching cultures blend and families form and love win, despite everything that had tried to stop it. A young Korean man and Ethiopian woman sat in the corner, holding hands nervously under the table. Amma recognized that fear, that hope, that impossible love. After their meal, she approached, slipped them her card. "This is a safe space," she said in English. "Come back any time. You're not alone." The woman's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you." Minjun watched from the kitchen, smiled. When Amma returned, he wrapped his arms around her, Adwoa squealing between them. "Saving strangers again?" he asked. "It worked out pretty well last time." Outside, Seoul hummed with possibility. Inside, found family celebrated. And at the centre of it all, a woman who'd slipped a note to save a life had instead saved them both. Amma looked at her daughter, her husband, the life they'd built from ashes and defiance. "Worth it?" Minjun whispered. She kissed him softly. "Every second." Adwoa babbled something that sounded like both languages at once. They laughed together, and it sounded like freedom. The end. If this story touched your heart, subscribe for more love stories that refuse to die. Share in the comments. Would you defy your family for love? What would you risk for someone who sees all of you? You're not alone in loving across lines. Welcome home, Akwaba.